Hello and welcome back to Creepy Encounters. We have some new real-life creepy encounters for you today straight from Reddit. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos and keep your windows locked in today's video. What are some creepy stories from your culture? From Paraguay, Jasi Jater. He's a blonde, beautiful dwarf that goes around naked in the woods. He owns a golden stick that provides him with magical powers. He kidnaps the kids that don't sleep in the afternoon, around 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. here, and if he returns them, they're often deaf or mute. Lewison is similar to a werewolf. The Tuesdays and Fridays nights he transforms into a horrible dog. The souls he takes never go to the afterlife, and that's why he's so feared. Some people think the seventh kid in every family grows to be a Lewison. Pombero, some kind of elf. He is the guardian of the woods and wild animals. He lives in the countryside and announces his presence whistling. If he is your friend, he can guide you through the woods and help you, but if he's your enemy, he can do all sorts of things to you. He punishes the hunters that kill more animals than necessary by making them disappear forever. I'm sorry if it's not well written, I did my best. From Brazil, Curupira, he is a demon of the forest. His feet are backwards so he can deceive who tries to follow him. He is said to whistle and scream for help to lure his victims into the forest. Sachi Perere, he is a mixture of African and indigenous folklore. He is a black kid that lost one leg fighting capoeira, and he spends his time smoking a pipe and tying knots in cows' tails. He wears a red hat that gives him magical powers. I think he appears inside a tornado. He is said to carry tricks against farmers, cooks and travelers. Bodo Cor de Rosa, he is a handsome and charming young man that seduces women in parties and gets them pregnant by a river. During the night, he transforms into a Bodo and swims away. A Bodo Cor de Rosa is a pink dolphin of the Amazon River. Into the water Marana woman born on Friday the 25th of December, she sneaks into your room at night and kills you, but she has some OCD of sorts and you can fend her if by leaving a pile of cow hair on your windowsill, she'll have to count them all, which hopefully leaves you with enough time to wake up. Edit, got quite a lot of comments on this one, so allow me to elaborate a bit. I am from Sweden and these are a few stories I've been told about when I was younger. Naken is the about Hardmannen, as someone else said, and Moran has several iterations. Some say it's sleep paralysis, others say it's a demon. I've always been told it's a demon that is created if a girl is born on a Friday that is also Christmas Day. It was from the original Dracula novel by Bram Stoker, written sometime in the late 1800s, I believe. I've gone on quite a few lengthy lectures about this book. Apart from pre-existing beliefs held in traditional vampire lore, it seems that Dracula is a very strong allegory promoting xenophobia and anti-immigration. If you think of Dracula as representing a foreigner out to invade or infiltrate the country, change the culture and religious beliefs, then the vampire lore is clear as day. Remember that this was Europe in the late 1800s, and not too long before World War I, and nationalism was on a sharp rise. So the big bad evil foreign vampire can't enter your country unless he is carried over the seas. Britain and Ireland are islands. Even then, he can only retain his powers if he sleeps in the dirt from his own grave, bringing his own land, his foreign soil, with him. And even then, he can't enter into your house unless you specifically invite him in, and watch out, because he might charm you into inviting him in unwittingly, and once you invite him in, the only way you can stop him is if you seal every tiny crack in your house. In fact, in the novel Dracula, the person who does invite him into the house is literally an insane person. Because you have to be crazy to let one of them foreigners in. Of course, just about the first thing Dracula does when he reaches the mainland is to go after the main character's pure and innocent wife. Because those foreigners will come after your women, no doubt. You can still see the allegories being used in contemporary vampire literature today. At least, you could until works like Interview with the Vampire and Twilight came around that romanticized the vampire image. But you can see back in the 80s and maybe the 90s, and times during a much more conservative culture, the vampire very consistently represented some outsider who came to seduce the main character's female interest, who in turn was usually some sort of ideal woman. Edit, but as a counterpoint to my statement, the flowing water also has a very strong religious connotation to it, as does the vampire in general. Flowing water may represent holy water used in baptisms, etc., and being that drinking blood could represent a defilement of the sacrament of communion, etc., it could very easily just be a statement about the division of Christianity in Ireland and mainland Europe at the time. Along with the fact that the main character John Harker or Harper meets Dracula on May 5th TG or 6th, which was supposed to be a night for the devils to roam free. When I was a kid growing up on the family farm in Poland, we had stories of the Czarna Mara, Black Mara, in our village. It was said that an unknown young lady would come to a party and if you danced with her she would later sneak into your bedroom and rape and kill you. One way to defend against her is to cut off a horse's mane, cover it in horse shit and hide it under a rock near your house. Apparently she really likes that kind of thing. There was also a way to discover her at the party. If you were able to see the unknown girl's bare back and she had whip marks, then it was the Czarna Mara. If discovered, she would flee and you'll never see her again. All this was back in the early 80s and I was very young, so I'm not sure if they just told these stories to scare kids or if it was a legend people believed. Either way, I was scared. Don't look up trees when you are out walking at night. A virgin ghost that will suck the life out of you sits up there waiting for you to look up. When a person is asleep, their soul leaves their body. If you paint or draw on a sleeping person's face, their soul will not recognize them and be unable to jump back into the body. The Brothers Grimm collected stories of folklore throughout Germany during the 19th century. Amongst them are plenty of famous and often dark fairy tales. One example is the famous story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin during the 13th century. The city of Hamelin suffered from a great rat plague. The people of Hamelin were out of their wits. One day though, a stranger in colorful clothes appeared and promised them to rid them of the rats for an appropriate payment. The citizens agreed and promised him a generous reward if he succeeded. The stranger was a skillful piper and played a melody on his flute that made the rats and mice of the city to gather around him. Enchanted by his music, they followed him when he stepped into a nearby river where they drowned. The piper had fulfilled his promise, but the people of Hamelin denied him his reward. The stranger left angrily and without payment. Some time later though he returned and played his flute once more. This time it were the children of Hamelin that fell under his tune's spell. He led them out of the town and into a cave under a mountain. Only 2 of the children returned, one blind, one mute, unable to tell where they had been. None of the other children were ever seen again. Small town in upstate NY. There used to be a train station there, back when people actually took passenger trains anywhere in rural areas. Fairly well-off guy, well-known in town, comes racing into the station, right before midnight. Seconds later, a huge, old-fashioned, jet-black train with nobody aboard, nobody, rolls into the station. No schedule shows a train arriving for another hour, but there it is. Guy runs through the booth and jumps onto the train. Train rolls off into the night. Nobody ever saw him again. In Romania, I grew up on a farm and my grandma and her sister were super religious, but they also believed in folktales. This one folktale said that each year on a specific night in summer, forgot the date, the day of the Sinzin, these mythical forest nymphs would come out and play their instruments together around town. You were never supposed to go outside if you heard music playing because it was their way of drawing people out. My grandma's sister told me this story about a person from their village who was working late on that day and didn't want to go home. As he was working he heard folk music and the sounds were getting closer and closer, so he hid in a haystack. He then overheard the sound of a string breaking and a female voice saying, "Oh no, my guitar string broke." Then another voice said, "Oh don't worry, maybe that man over there can help," and they apparently took one of his muscles from his leg and used it as a replacement for the string, and since then that man never walked on that foot ever again. This story used to scare me so much when I was little, and I never knew if they made it up entirely or if it was a tale passed on through generations, but it was super creepy. Smiley face. Ooh, I've got some nice ones from De Druivenstreek in Belgium. Tokars, tenensnijders, who cut of children's toes when they walk barefoot through a field. The black dog, werewolf, local variant, who jumps in your back, then you have to carry him to a graveyard where he jumps off. Lauder met de Keet Lauder with his chains, a BDSM enthusiast, who follows you when you're all alone at night, rattling his chains to scare you and being a general dick. Very similar to aforementioned werewolf. Ser put monster, or something similar like Putwivel, greenhouse well monsters, a monster that lives under the lid's greenhouse wells and pulls in children, then drowns and devours them. The ruins of a monastery in the Sonian forest that was burned to the ground, where it's said you can still hear the monks, nuns chant in the night. Degen, the eyes, a phenomenon where you get suddenly enveloped by smoke, see a bunch of eyes and some burning people, possibly connected to the monastery if you look at the description of burning people in the Sonian forest. And a lot of witches, white wives, ghosts, bandits, etc. The wild hunt even made a pass through my village. How to prevent them? Simple, make a cross, carry a crucifix, listen to your parents and the parish priest. And don't be a child. Not necessarily creepy, but interesting nonetheless. People in my town spoke of Deer Woman. Origin story differs, but I was told a woman was killed and buried on top of a deer. She would chase people at night and was known to harass motorcycle riders, even going so far as to jump onto the back and ride along while laughing hysterically. There's an old bridge on the outside of town and she was especially known to haunt the area around it.
I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more real-life creepy encounters around